Stay on Topic, episode 8.5. If you have a topic that you want us to discuss or think is worthy of discussion, hit us up on email. It's stayontopic111@gmail.com. You can hit me up on Twitter @Giltastrophe, or hit up James on Twitter
@PostJM9.
in Bob Ricotta.
I'm on Twitter.
You're there.
I just don't know what my handle is. Is it a handle? Is it like
You
a
have
CV?
3 different ones because you have 2 egg accounts and then your professional account.
Then my professional one. So I have 2. All right.
So let's go around the room and introduce everybody. Bob Ricotta. He is the best there is at what he does. How you doing, Bob?
Doing well, Chris. Doing well. Very excited to be here.
And we got James Post, our local media darling, and assistant managing editor at The Leader in Corning, New York.
Good to be here. Interesting day.
Interesting week. I'm Chris Gill. I just kind of direct traffic. So yeah, this week we had an FCC investigation into The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
That's been over-reported.
For a possible obscenity.
They've received complaints, and they're obligated to investigate them. It's not like they started a official investigation on their own.
No, but considering who's in charge of the FCC now, that's what makes it concerning.
How it gets followed through on, that's going to be a different question.
Yeah, the man in question is Ajit Pai, who is really hostile against net neutrality and all things free speech. Yeah, he is. He hates it. Emmanuel Macron, or Macron?
Macron.
I just like hearing him say it.
Yeah, I just like saying Macron to just watch him bristle. He is the new president of France. So the stem of nationalism that's kind of been taking over in his elections seems to have been temporarily halted.
Yeah, and I just wanted to take a moment and have us all think about the fact that ourselves and a lot of Europeans spent the last couple of days genuinely wondering if someone from an organization called the National Front might be president of France.
And that would be Marine Le Pen?
Marine Le Pen.
I'm going to call her La Pen just to watch you bristle.
And this is the second election that we know of that has been hacked.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's concerning. I don't know what can be done about that, but I think that we need to take that seriously, that our election processes can be taken over by black hats.
Yeah, and I don't think it should be up to each country individually. I think this is like a big enough problem to involve the United Nations.
Yes. It's probably going to be, I say probably, it should be a function that's going to be created under a new
world order?
a function of UN election monitoring, like some sort of anti-cyber squad or something that could be created under that umbrella.
Yeah, this is
might
just
be a useful thing. This
has become too big of a problem very quickly.
Yes,
to be handled by any one nation, I think.
And especially, this could be happening in countries where they're not in a position to be even, as ineffectively as we in the U.S. managed to keep a handle on this kind of cyber crime that turned into something that could affect an election. If this happens in Paraguay,
Right. Or Parador, like the movie Moon over Parador. Also, the jobless rate.
If anybody's going to manipulate those elections, damn it, it's going to be the U.S.
Or Richard Dreyfuss. He was great in that. The jobless rate dropped to 4.4%, the lowest it's been since the 2008 housing bubble burst.
And
I give all credit to current President Donald Trump.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, it's cool no matter who's in charge, but the wage growth is kind of stagnant. That only increased by 0.3%, which keeps it just ahead of the inflation rate, but not enough to really kick the economy in the ass and get it going again.
And worker productivity dropped 0.1%. It's the first time it's dropped in like 6 years. And that's the number that tells employers that they can raise wages. If they're getting more out of a worker, they can afford to pay more.
And I would just like to point out that during the campaign now President Trump was saying that the unemployment rate was not a real number, and how the real numbers were, double digits.
Yeah.
I don't hear him saying that anymore. I think
Yeah.
It hasn't come up. No.
No.
Maybe he left it off his notes. He forgot about it. Who knows?
Well, he should do like Sarah Palin and just write it on his hand, like crib notes. Sarah Palin callback.
Nice. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's 2 episodes in a row of the Sarah Palin reference, because she was in the White House the previous week with Kid Rock and Ted Nugent. Oh, God. Anyway, there was also this...
and, all of every opportunity for a supergroup there, nothing came of it.
Not a thing.
I'd like to think they played Rock Band somewhere. Like don't they have a theater in the White House?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So play Rock Band on the big screen. I'd like to think they did that.
So, yeah, the big news of the week was Congress finally doing what they told everybody they were going to do for how many years?
7 at this point?
Yeah.
I think I saw a number that this is the 57th vote to repeal Obamacare in 7 years.
Yeah.
So they got one right.
Yeah.
Yay, them.
It just took those first 56 tries to work, everything out and come up with a bill that everyone hates.
How much do they hate it?
A lot? Do you want me to get into polling now? I didn't know if we wanted to go over the bill in substance first.
Why don't we go right to the polling?
Okay. Well, it's pretty bad. CBS News actually did a review of a lot of recent polling on the Republican healthcare plan, Trump Care, if you'd like to call it that, or the American Health Care Act, if you'd like to call it that, and asked whether Congress and the president should continue to pursue this path. Obviously, this poll was done before the actual vote took place. 53% of all polled wanted the president and Congress to move on to other issues and quit trying to repeal and replace Obamacare. 77% of Republicans said push forward with the bill. But independents, 54-41 against going forward with a new health care bill. So that's a pretty big spread in independents. They also polled on what people think needs to be done with the existing healthcare law, Obamacare. They asked people if it should be kept as is, if it needs to be changed in some way, or if it needs to be repealed and replaced. And out of that polling, out of all people polled, only 12% said that the bill should stay exactly as it is, but only 24% said it needs to be repealed.
How many people know exactly what it is and what it does and how it works?
Less than either of those numbers, probably.
Yeah, that's...
But they do now, after so many years, start to have a feeling of the effect it's had on their lives.
Right.
And I think from the perspective of an individual voter, I think that's a fair assessment. I don't think we should necessarily be judging people's opinion in terms of how well they understand the policy at this point. They've had 7 years to see whether it works or doesn't. And I think the polling reflects their own personal experiences, which is what we want when we ask, when we poll.
But if that is true, then why such the wild swing? I mean, the Republican plan was never popular, but there was a time not long ago that Obamacare was also not. Democrats lost the House of Representatives because of Obamacare.
They did, but it was before people had a chance to see what was actually involved. And I think one thing that has actually helped polling on Obamacare is the Republican healthcare bill and the talk of what would be lost in a repeal.
What I find fascinating about all this, of course, is the foundation of Obamacare was a Republican idea.
Yes, the individual mandate.
Yeah.
I mean that came up in the early 90s when healthcare was Hillary Clinton's issue, and the Republicans wanted an individual mandate if they were going to go forward with that, which never went anywhere. But you've got the 12% saying it should stay as it is, which is a small number. The 24%, another relatively small number, wanting repeal, So in the middle, you've got 61% who said the bill needs to stay, but with some changes. And that number, that 61%, included a majority of all groups, including Republicans. Republicans polled preferred some changes to repeal, 50% to 40%.
So the question I have is this is obviously more red meat for the base. This is to check something off on the promise list. So how much meat is the base going to get before they try to govern the whole country?
Well, and that's the question that arises for me out of this polling is, the Republicans, obviously, they bust so many of them out to the Rose Garden to hold that ceremony, touting the passage of this bill in the House as a win. A win with whom?
Yeah, a win with whom? And are they celebrating this as a win just to tell their true believers to say, see, we did it, knowing full well that the Senate is going to tear this thing apart and put it back together again?
That I honestly, I don't feel like I'm in a position to judge. I don't know if they're thinking that far ahead.
Or are they just elated that they got something passed?
I don't know if they're going to stand on the principle of what they did and blame the Senate if it gets changed. But it leaves me to wonder if they're still playing to the base and assuming that is what's going to matter in 2018. And I'm not sure that's the way 2018 is going to play out.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of bases, if anything, they're expanding the Democratic base.
Oh yeah, I mean this is red meat for liberals too.
Yeah, I mean, how many funds have been raised off the past? I would love to see how many fundraising letters have gone out and how much money has come in since this passed on Thursday. I bet it was substantial.
Yeah,
I mean,
and you never know those numbers until they get announced. So.
Right, but traditionally, when gun control laws get passed, that's when the NRA collects the most money.
Yeah.
So I don't see why it wouldn't work that way this time around.
Oh, sure. So we've got House Republicans already looking ahead to 2018 because that's what we do. It's May of 2017. It's time to start talking about November of 2018.
Elections are fun.
Yeah. They're already facing the reality that the president's party almost always loses seats in the midterms. And
that's if they're not doing something unpopular.
Yeah. And that's, Cook Political Report, not some fly-by-night organization. This is a finely tuned machine that monitors districts all over the country and puts out their predictions as to which way different districts are leaning. And a lot of people base their reporting, a lot of people base their campaign strategies around the numbers that come out of this group. They shifted 20 GOP-held seats across the U.S. toward Democrats. And I should point out, some of those shifts were from solid Republican to likely Republican. These weren't seats shifting from, lean left or lean right to lean left, but they're shifting away from Republican strength in these 20 locations.
Yeah, and that's going to be super interesting to see who the Democrats are going to run in those districts.
Exactly.
Because they better have somebody on the bench to take advantage of that.
And that's something else that, there was a lot of secondary reporting on this report out of Cook from more left-leaning sites touting the fact that they had shifted these 20 seats. And one thing that they didn't mention that was in Cook's own article that I found incredibly interesting, they cited in moving those 20 seats, they cited not only the unpopularity of this healthcare issue with voters, but the recruiting opportunities that it represents for Democrats, noting that in some districts, Democrats are, quote, overwhelmed by a deluge of eager newcomers. That's not something that's happened for Democrats in House races in a while. And Cook is talking about, districts where young doctors and prosecutors and military veterans are coming forward and saying, I want to run for this seat, to the point where, there could be primaries, or there could be, trying to pick the best of, rather than sacrificial lambs, which is what often, in these Republican held seats, often that's what you get on the Democratic side on the ballot.
Yes. Start your vetting, because you're gonna have a lot of it to do.
They're gonna want to start now.
But speaking of primaries,
we don't want a massa. We don't want somebody with tickle fights in their past.
No, certainly not.
Speaking of primaries, the Trump Care bill creates some interesting situations as far as House and Senate races, because depending on what the final product is, if you vote the wrong way, I could see Republicans getting primary from the right. If they fail to get this through in some of the more red states, I can see, especially with the president's party being perceived as weakened, I can see challenges from the right, especially to some of the more moderate Republicans who may block this going through.
Well, I guess that sort of draws the opposite question. I wonder if we're going to see any Republicans who have been strong backers of Trump, as the electorate turns against him on issues like this, getting primaried towards the center right.
That's what I was thinking. The threat would come from the center, maybe not the right.
I think it could happen either way. I think there's a chance, and obviously, as a member of the media, I'm biased towards conflict. So this is the kind of thing I'd love to see happen. There's a chance that there could be, 2, 3, 4-way primaries in some of these seats with long-term incumbent Republicans.
And that's just great for democracy as a whole.
Absolutely, it's great.
That is the kind of environment you want your political parties to be in constantly.
Yeah.
You want them to be challenged from their own parties, from outside, from a third party.
And you want voters to hear that there are different ways of being a Republican.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So could we say that in the short term that this is not a good bill for the Republican Party, but could be a healthy purging kind of situation long term?
Yeah. It could click some light bulbs on for some people that, maybe don't have extreme views, but are constantly stuck with representatives that have those extreme views.
Yeah. Say, I believe in smaller government. I believe that the individuals should pull their own weight, but I'm not anti-immigration. I'm not anti-choice. I would love to see that. I would love to see more Amory Houghton Republicans.
Yeah.
Come out of the woodwork and take back the party, or at least enough of the party to matter again.
And then donors, where are they going to spend their money? I mean, seriously, they've had it so long where there was an anointed person per party, so the donors knew where to put their money. And if we have some kind of explosion or some kind of groundswell of new people into the system or into the election process, where are the donors going to spend their money?
And can you just hear the bitching in boardrooms across the country?
Boy. People
having to put in primary money on races.
Yeah.
When have we had to spend that money before? But no, there were people on the left when Trump was the candidate, and when it looked like he was going to lose, and even after he won, saying that Trump could be the downfall of the Republican Party. I think if you're a rational thinker, no matter how committed a Democrat you are, or even if you're further left than what the Democratic worldview allows, I don't think you really believe that not having a Republican Party is actually good for the country.
No.
The Republican Party needs to be restructured. Right now, it's splintering, and it needs to find a new center. It needs to center itself around a cohesive philosophy that either holds together all of the groups that are splitting away, or it doesn't, and maybe it splits into more parties, so that you end up with some equivalent of the Greens or the Working Families Party, or, you know, something like that on the right.
But to tell the RNC that is to lose your job, ask Michael Steele.
Yeah.
I mean, he told them this back in what, 05?
Yeah.
It's like, guys and gals, we really need to be a lot more inclusive and to quit saying dumb shit, because eventually that's going to bite us in the ass.
Well, I think what the Republican, what both parties should do, but what right now the Republicans should do is say, here are our core beliefs. Here are our 10 core beliefs. You can believe in 5 of them and still be a Republican. You don't need to check off all 10 boxes. They need to say to the pro-choice Republicans, the small government pro-choice Republicans, you're welcome here. We're not going to push you to the margins.
Yeah. But can you see that happening on the left? Can you see a Democratic Party where pro-life people are welcome?
No.
No,
To be honest,
no.
I mean, maybe in some districts that have been long held Republican districts, and they know that the only way they can get it in Democratic hands is a pro-life, pro-gun Democrat. I can see.
Does one even exist?
There are plenty of pro-gun Democrats. There are plenty of Democrats who aren't in favor of strong gun control. I think abortion is just a more divisive issue. It's the issue that's basically been the defining issue for the two parties since Roe. And that's, you know, something that we talked about last time or the time before. I think it's something we just need to get away from.
Yeah. Long overdue, but it's still fresh on the minds of the people who are running and the people that are in government. And they're the ones that keep dredging this up.
Yeah.
I think largely the country has moved past this.
Here's my idea.
Yes.
And this is coming from a white man with no cred whatsoever on issues like this. If we just get everybody on board with the idea of the default form of birth control being IUDs, which are almost 100% effective, and get to a world where people just don't get pregnant unless they want to, maybe we can stop talking about abortion.
So you're talking about having the government implant IUDs?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, you know, when a woman goes to her doctor the first time and says, I'm thinking about this, that should be the first thing that comes up. We shouldn't even be talking about the pill. The pill is a shitty form of birth control.
Yeah.
And it's still the dominant form of birth control in the U.S. And it's not in other countries, in other developed countries anymore.
But, and a lot of this goes back on religion. There are religions that don't want you to use birth control in any way, shape, or form.
And that's a pretty big one, the Catholic Church.
Yeah, the Catholics are pretty big on that.
Yeah, but, you know, the leadership, the hierarchy is anti-birth control. Catholic voters, not so much.
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah,
but no, and that's, you know, that's not to get too personal, but that's, you know, always been my view of abortion is it should be available to people. It shouldn't be necessary.
Right.
We should have a better solution than that.
And to change the topic to something less icky, Tom Reed, I give Tom Reed a lot of credit this week. He's doing town halls after the healthcare repeal where a lot of Congress people are not.
Yeah.
And he has taken the bullets and he's out there. He was just south of Jamestown this weekend, and he had a veteran really go off on him because the Republican stance is, oh yeah, well, you get those back in tax credits. And it's like, nobody understands that.
Yeah.
And he took all the bullets. So I give him a lot of credit for going out and facing his constituents, because a lot of chicken shits didn't.
Yeah.
Is his seat listed as lean right or toss up?
You know, I have not checked that in a while. I don't know.
It's close to toss up, if not toss up.
Really?
I believe
from
so.
Who? From Cook?
I believe so.
Okay.
I would say just recent history would show that seat is.
It's almost a meaningless, you know, not that I discount the great work that Cook does, but until there's an opponent.
Right, exactly.
Yes. I mean,
that rating is almost meaningless.
what did he beat Martha Robertson by? Like 65-35 or something?
Yeah, I mean the gap was 20 plus.
Yeah.
But that's a weak opponent. They've shown when there's a strong opponent running against them, it's really close.
And the gap against Plum was more than 10.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, all due respect, but he wasn't the strongest opponent. So, then when Nate Shinagawa ran against him, he really gave him a race.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully some of those young professionals are going to emerge in our district, and, maybe primary time on the right, and maybe we'll have a Democratic. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. I think it'd be interesting, and it's not that I have anything against Tom Reed, and not that I'm making any, political statement about his positions, but I think it'd be an interesting outcome in a district like this for him to be one of the ones that faces a Republican primary from the center.
Yeah. And I think the Republicans can still save face by doing something popular, like the infrastructure bill.
Yeah.
So maybe, say the Senate rips the bill apart, puts it back together in their vision, and that lets some of the Congress people off the hook. Come right back with an infrastructure bill, spending bills. That's what creates economic revenue. And yeah, we're gonna blow up the deficit a little bit to do it, but it would be hugely popular. So they still have time to save face.
Yeah. But
whether they're smart enough to do that is.
But
at what point do the deficit hawks come out on the right and say, does the Freedom Caucus back an infrastructure bill?
Probably not. But some Democrats would.
That's true.
That's true. And that would go a long way towards giving Trump some cred.
Exactly.
Is reaching across an aisle and getting a bipartisan bill.
But as much as we all like to talk about bipartisanship, passing a bill with half Republican and half Democratic votes, which, could theoretically happen on an infrastructure bill, is going to hurt Trump with the base, and it's going to hurt Paul Ryan with his caucus.
Yeah.
he may not hold the speakership through, after that's over.
But somebody in the White House has to know that he cannot win re-election with just the base. And so far, he's done nothing to reach out to the moderates that put him over the edge in the states he needed to win. So I would think that he's done enough for the base that he can campaign on it, that he needs to reach out to moderates, to Reagan Democrats, and say, I'm more about solutions than I am about partisanship.
You think the base's memory is that long? Isn't it? What have you done for me lately?
It depends on how well the Democrats do their job.
Yeah.
If they run an effective campaign, then no, I think you're right. I think it's what have you done for me lately? If the Democrats bungle this like they do everything, I think then yes, I think that Trump can run on Obama, repeal and replacing Obamacare to placate the base, and then tout this bipartisan jobs bill as his effort to heal the country.
We'll see.
We will see. We will see. And fortunately for Republicans, the bill that the House voted on is almost 100% likely to be changed by the Senate. And people who are going nuts over the passage of the bill of Trump Care aren't really looking at its future in the Senate, which is very, very rocky. Right now, the Democrats or the Republicans hold is it 52, 48?
Oh God, I would have known if you hadn't asked me. Yes, I think so.
Okay. So, and if you're counting on Vice President Pence to be the tiebreaker, then all it needs is 3 Republican defections, assuming that Democrats vote in lockstep against the bill. Then they need 3 Republican defections to doom this bill. 2 of those 3 are Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Both women who have spoken out against the original Trump care that never went up for a vote. Both are against the cuts to Planned Parenthood funding, and both opposed the nomination of Betsy DeVos. So I don't know if that's an omen, but they score highest among Republicans on voting against Trump's agenda.
So they have real independent streaks in them.
Yes, and they have. I mean, being women's issues are important to them. And you know, Alaska is a maverick state,
As I've heard.
It's our third Sarah Palin reference.
How did she outpace West Wing references? How did this happen?
She's relevant.
Oh,
she was recently in the White House.
Yeah.
So anyway,
and you know, she'd have this Russia thing licked.
Speaking of Russia and licked, did you ever see
This can go nowhere good?
It can go somewhere.
If the next words are I saw on Tumblr, then no, it's not going anywhere good.
The porn parody. Oh God, Nailin Palin. It's a thing that exists, and you should YouTube it, or
I'm pretty sure it's not on YouTube.
Preferably at work. Nailin Palin.
It's been around for a while.
Oh yeah. I mean,
That's okay. You're both familiar. You know, there's a line. There's a line between, you know, your average person who, like any adult, should have the right to view pornography if they want to, and the kind of people who keep track of the industry to the point where they're aware of porn parodies.
Nailin Palin.
And there you go.
So anyway, back to reality. And no, I'm not gonna. No, okay. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski hold the fate of this bill in their hands, more or less, because if they decide to vote against whatever the Senate cobbles together, then all it takes is one more. And then there are several other senators who could doom this bill, like Tom Cotton of Arkansas and Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, both solidly red states, both conservative senators, but Arkansas and Louisiana benefited greatly from the Medicaid expansion in Obamacare. And they have said that they are concerned about Medicaid cuts in the Trump care bill. So all it needs is Murkowski, Collins, and one of those two, or both of those two, and Murkowski or Collins, and this bill sinks.
And obviously, you know, the other thing that can happen in the Senate, other than the defeat of the existing bill, is the Senate could do whatever the hell they want to this bill.
Yeah.
It's fine to sort of look at the scoreboard and say who's going to vote for or against the bill as it exists. By the time it gets to a vote, it could be a completely different animal.
And that's the challenge, is to Frankenstein something together that the more moderate Senate and the Freedom Caucus in the House can both accept.
Yeah, and that's the reality is, you know, that it's probably going to have to move left in the Senate to guarantee passage. And then it's going to live or die in conference, whether they can work out something that can pass both houses.
So give me a percentage. Give me a percent. What do you think the chances are of this actually becoming the law of the land in some form?
It depends on all of those things. The chances of what passed the House becoming the law of the land, near zero.
Correct.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement of that. But can Republicans corral all their cats, get the votes that they need to get this thing through conference and on the president's desk? 30%? You think that's high, or are you just struggling to put a number on this?
I'm really struggling to put a number on it because so many people's political careers potentially hang in the balance that I think that's going to trump whatever, you know, whatever they want to do for their base. At this point, they're pretty much out to save their own skins. Because, you know, a seat in Congress or the Senate, pretty good gig.
Yeah.
You get some great
Yeah.
health care. You get a nice, you know, 6-digit salary.
Are you suggesting that politics is going to drive this more than what people actually believe is best for the American people?
I am.
That's a very craven and cynical point of view. And honestly,
I'm disappointed in you, Chris.
But like you said, with Cotton and the other senator Cassidy in deep red states that benefited from this thing.
Yeah.
Those weren't the only 2 states that benefited.
No.
Like Kentucky. Kansas,
Yep.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
And Rand Paul is an independent SOB.
Yeah.
He's, you know, no love for the president.
It's like, my people really like this. If I take this away.
When you really start looking out at the people who could jump ship on this, it's probably close to a dozen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And I'm not saying it would be all of them, but it could be any combination of them.
all you need is 3.
Yeah.
Assuming, and I'm assuming that Chuck Schumer has the Democrats in line and they will not pick off any Democrats.
I can't see it, no.
I can't see it, but 2018 is an election year. And there are Democrats who are in states that went to Trump. I can't think of any, but I'm sure that there are a handful.
Yeah.
So there may be opportunities to pick off a Democrat or 2. But assuming the Democrats vote in lockstep and they need less than 3 defections, I can just see this thing coming out like a Christmas tree full of ornaments. Everybody's got an amendment or
Yep.
they got their hand out. Oh, I'll vote for it if you put this project in my district or my state or.
Yeah. I could almost see you could put together a bill in the Senate that could get 75 votes by shifting this to something more towards what that 61% want, something that fixes things that people are unhappy with in Obamacare without a repeal, without dumping the Medicaid expansion. The Senate has the right to make all of those changes. The Senate could do anything they want with a bill. They very frequently will take some bill from the House, strip out the entire content, and replace it with something else. So, that's completely open season. They can do whatever they want. But that bill's never going to pass in the House. So, who knows?
And I think that the at least one moment of truth is coming up in the next week or so when the CBO presents its report.
Which they have to do.
Yes.
Before the Senate can vote on this. Because this is being brought to the Senate under reconciliation rules so that it can avoid the possibility of a filibuster. In order to bring it in under reconciliation, they have to prove that it lowers the deficit. In order to prove that it lowers the deficit, they need a CBO score. So the Senate doesn't have the smokescreen that the House had in passing this bill before any numbers are out there.
And forgive me for backtracking, but do you guys believe that there's any price to be paid for House members for voting for this before it was scored? I mean, that seems pretty dumb.
I think that's whatever political situation House members are in, that's baked in from when they did it the last time.
Okay, so that's already part of the numbers. There's not an additional price to be paid.
I don't think so.
But still, pretty sketchy, don't you think? I mean, we know why they did it because the numbers aren't going to be pretty.
Yeah, but coming from people who complained about not having spent enough time reading and understanding the Obamacare legislation, all the did you read the bill and all that kind of stuff.
You have to read the bill to see what's in it.
They went after the Democrats on that, and some would say rightly so. And again, it just looks like hypocrisy when you come around when you're in power and do the same thing.
And we've established that for both bases, hypocrisy matters very little.
It seems not to.
But
matter.
there's that narrow middle that everyone plays for. The swing voters.
Right.
I got to believe that the hypocrisy, they've got to start piling up, and people have to start taking notice.
Well, but this could populate an entire separate podcast. That's the uncommitted voters, the so-called independents, not people who are registered as independents, but those swing voters you talk about, the uncommitted that they're always trying to pull to one side or the other, are the least politically engaged.
Yes.
That's why they're uncommitted. And I don't know that any of those people are paying attention right now. They're going to be paying attention maybe 3 days before they go to vote in 2018.
Okay.
Or 2020.
Yeah.
I mean,
they won't even
chances
vote.
are most of those people don't vote in 2018.
Yeah, sadly, but
So you're basically what you're saying
Yeah,
is that they can get away with any lie, any hypocrisy, and the bases are still going to support them.
Yeah, because both sides are so insulated against anything that doesn't follow the message that they already believe.
Well, that's goddamn depressing, James. Thank you for making me lose faith in the American system.
But no, I've always believed that this center that people are always reaching towards, the independents, the uncommitteds, is so illusory.
Yeah, and
I think it's basically it's a group of non-voters.
I don't think so. I think there are people who believe 48% of what Republicans believe in and 52% of what Democrats believe in, or vice versa. Those are they're educated, they're engaged, but they're not just a straight ticket Democrat or Republican. I think that's...
You really think there's a lot of people out there like that?
I think so. I think that both parties have moved to the fringes, and so they've left a lot of voters behind.
yeah, I could see that center growing because of what Bob just said.
Is the center growing or are the bases shrinking? Because I think those are two different things.
Well, one would have to happen if one is inevitable if the other happens.
I think your definition of what constitutes the center would change depending on which is actually happening.
I think there are fewer true believers, and that means there are more people going into the center because they've seen their parties completely lose their goddamn minds. Like the Houghton Republicans that we talked about. They ain't happy about what's going on with their party.
Can we take a moment just for, our 25, 30 total listeners at this point? some percentage of those obviously are not from this area, not familiar with who Amory Houghton is. Can one or both of you, because he was before my time, I didn't move to this area until after that.
Amory Houghton was called the compassionate conservative who dominated this district for decades.
Yeah.
I can't remember how many consecutive terms he served, but it was, I think, dozens. And he stepped away in what, 98, 2000?
That sounds
somewhere
about right,
around
yeah.
There. Right as the George W. Bush neocons came into power, and he really did not see eye to eye with the Cheneyites, and that's where you could first see the fissure happening. And then when the Tea Party came along, he was pretty vocal about, the Tea Party is their tactics. He did not agree with those at all, and I can't fathom he is at all pleased with what's gone on with his party.
And there are a lot of people in this area who still worship the man.
Yeah.
To the point where the paper I work at, after printing a letter that was critical of him, actually received threats in response. People saying, "How dare we even print that letter?"
Yeah, the Houghtons started Corning Incorporated.
Yeah, and that's
the old
that's
Corning
one thing.
Glass
Very,
Works.
very fondly remembered. Also, richer than God, which
Yes,
probably
yes.
also had a lot to do with why he was able to hold the seat as long as he was.
Absolutely, no question. But he is more revered than probably anybody in Corning ever.
Yeah.
Even, Baron von Steuben.
Steuben.
Yeah, Steuben.
Who even knows who that guy is?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, short answer long. When we refer to Houghton Republicans, basically we're saying moderates, people who work with people across the aisle.
Entertained people from across the aisle at their homes and their summer homes.
Yeah.
And that's Tom Reed would say that's him. Tom Reed would say he's a bipartisan who puts forward bills with Democratic co-sponsors. They may not often pass, but he does talk with those people. He started the Problem Solvers Conference.
Yes, I saw that on
caucus rather, years ago. That's supposed to be a group of people willing to work together in a bipartisan manner to really get down and solve problems. So I think if you asked him, he would consider himself a Houghton Republican.
Yeah.
Why is he not?
Because he votes lockstep with his party at every turn. Has he ever cast a vote against what the party line is?
I'm sure maybe on some kind of rider to an amendment.
He was one of the first ones to come out and officially endorse Trump.
Yeah, he's a fairly solid conservative. I don't have Tom Reed's voting record in front of me. He just, maybe it's the civility, maybe it's the meanness that he exhibits in his campaign that Amory Houghton would have never, put up with. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe if you compared voting records, they would be more similar than different.
And I'm stepping on questionable ground here, but when he ran against Martha Robertson, a strong liberal woman, 2 campaigns ago, his campaign ran some pretty ugly ads against her.
Yes.
But at the same time, he's also a guy who will go and face a crowd who hates him.
I'll give you this.
At town halls and try and have a respectful conversation as they're screaming at him.
He is maybe as close as you're going to get to a Houghton conservative in the modern sphere of politics.
And I'm not arguing one way or the other. I'm just saying
devil's advocate. Yeah.
He would say he fits that mold. And
by modern standards, he probably does believe that, or, it's accepted that, oh yeah, wow, he's really moderate because he's not as crazy as some of his party members are.
And honestly, I don't know if people have as much of an opportunity to be moderate as they did 20 years ago.
Right.
Because there are fewer bipartisan bills making their way through Congress.
And it's just become so toxic.
Yeah. And that's, to go back to Reed, and once again, we're talking about local politics, but yeah, it's the local angle on national politics, right, I suppose. Yeah. Reed has put forward a lot of bipartisan bills with Democratic co-sponsors, and they generally go nowhere. So where's the positive reinforcement?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's give Reed an incomplete. Yeah. I will give him an incomplete in my mind and do some more research and see if maybe he's worth the moderate label.
Maybe we'll do a podcast where we just go member by member and come up with some kind of chart or something to see who's really moderate and who's not.
If we can say member 50 times in a podcast.
Oh, yes, we can.
All right.
So speaking of members.
Go on.
Yes.
I love this segue. Go ahead.
Several members of our crew went to see Guardians of the Galaxy 2 this weekend.
But not one of us.
And
that makes this awkward.
It is. But we weren't going to spoil it for the listeners anyway.
We weren't?
Oh, okay. If you want to be that guy, yeah, sure.
It's one of those movies, I'll let you take the lead and let you sort of, take my hand and guide me to how to discuss this film substantively without spoilers. Because I think that's hard.
It's not spoilery to say it is hugely entertaining.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe there are parts of it that are much more entertaining than the first.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous looking. It's ever since Doctor Strange, Marvel has really put up some money to make their movies pop. Because before their color palettes were really dull.
Yeah.
And generic looking. So this is I think Doctor Strange was the first one that really popped on screen. This one is absolutely gorgeous. It's also one of the few movies I wish I'd gone and seen in 3D.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd want to see it in 3D just because with glasses it just never works well.
I don't like having to have peripherals to watch movies.
Yeah. Well, it's like, as somebody who wears prescription glasses, when you put the 3D glasses on, it's awful.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
And I can't not because my vision is that bad. So
they did a ton of deep cuts fan service in this movie. That only the real true believers would get. James Gunn is really good at that. And
welcome, true believers. I can't do it.
Yeah, the intro to Spidey and His Amazing Friend.
Yes.
Yeah. Favorite cartoon of all time, by the way. But yeah, massively entertaining. I did have a few gripes, a couple of which are spoilery, so I'll stay away. But one of them is the soundtrack.
Really?
The soundtrack.
You're going to go there.
Yeah. The first movie, the first Guardians movie, the soundtrack was almost bigger than the movie.
And I think they made a conscious decision not to do that.
Why?
I feel like
it's constant promotion.
I feel like the songs that were used in this movie, a couple of them felt like throwaways. As far as how they were used in the film. I think the ones that worked well in the way they were used in the film worked better than a lot of them in the original film. And I think when you avoid, escape the Pina Colada song, you get more freedom to let the scene interpret the song.
It didn't work for me at all. There were maybe 2 moments that I was like, oh, that's good placement. And everything else I was just really curious why they chose that particular song for that particular scene.
But just talking about the opening scene,
they
basically did something very similar to what they did in the equivalent opening scene in the original Guardians.
Yes.
Not the actual opening, but the opening where we actually see Quill as an adult for the first time.
Right, yeah.
They did something very similar,
but made it better.
I think to much stronger effect.
Yeah, they nailed that so well. And if you take the soundtrack away, I really don't have a lot of gripes with this movie. Again, they're kind of spoilery, the ones I do have, so
Yeah.
I'll abstain. But next week, Bob, you'll have to take care of this. And then
Will the spoiler embargo be off next week?
For the listeners or Bob?
For listeners.
Okay. Yeah, I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
A week? That's all we're giving people now?
Yeah. I mean, these movies do not stay in theaters long at all anymore.
No.
They are in and out of there quick. So, yeah, next week we can spoil away, I think. That was obviously like the big movie of the summer. There are a bunch more that are, look like a lot of fun, but this was the tentpole movie for the summer.
It's not even summer. It's only May.
But summer movie season starts in May.
One other thing I wanted to bring up about this, and this is not an original observation. This actually was brought to my attention by watching a review from Red Letter Media, who pointed out that this is the only Marvel franchise, if you want to call the individual elements their own franchises, this is the only one with a writer-director.
Yeah. Well, no. Whedon wrote and directed the first 2 Avengers movies.
But now, I mean, this is sort of an auteur film.
Oh yeah,
in a way. And it, I'm not sure Avengers really was. He may have been the writer director, but there were a lot of people in his ears on that. And it felt like there was actually more of that there was a co-writer on the first movie.
Zach Penn.
Yeah. I don't know how much of that survived when Gunn came aboard.
Oh, you mean on the first Guardians? Not
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, it was Gail. Can't remember her name, but yeah, she took what he had written and then wrote a script from that, and Marvel was like, "Oh, now we get it."
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, there aren't. I mean, really, when you look at modern blockbuster landscape, not a lot of auteurs out there. Maybe
Yeah,
Nolan.
The man with the vision to create Tromeo and Juliet. You need that in order to make a film that's as personal and as unique as Guardians Volume 2.
And as far as a tearjerker, there are certain points in this movie where Gunn just trusts your love of these characters and just tugs on it.
Yeah.
And doesn't wrench on it. Just a nice little tug to remind you of why you love these characters.
Yeah, and I think
a movie or a hand job.
I was sitting next to James in the theater.
Yes. But no, and I think that actually works very well. There are moments with one particular character, and again, we're still trying to avoid spoilers, that go back to very similar things that happened with the same character in the first film that work better in the sequel because they're much more subtly played.
And I think Gunn just really trusted his audience. It's like, you know these characters. We don't have to rehash anything. Let's just go.
Yeah.
And the whole movie was just nonstop forward momentum. He never did the flashback thing that so many movies fall into.
Retell the origin story?
Retell or a little vignette or something.
Yeah.
No, Gunn's like, no, you guys have seen this. You love it. Let's go.
The only reintroduction we got of these characters is how they act in that opening scene, and that's all we needed.
Yep. Yeah, it was extremely well done. One of these days we'll sit down and rank these things, but it will not be today.
Yes.
Did you guys do anything else fun or interesting in the past week?
I did want to. I'm sorry.
No, I got nothing.
I did want to bring up one other Marvel-related thing, which I was wondering your opinion, Chris, of the Defenders trailer.
It looks really intriguing. It looks like they're going to have fun with this series.
How can you? Excuse me, but how can you have fun with a character like Jessica Jones and Power Man, Luke Cage?
Jessica Jones is Snark.
They're not fun. I mean, Jessica Jones is a dark character.
Yeah, but there was really a lot of humor in that series, and she did a good job with it.
Yeah, she wore it.
It was a lot of deadpan, but it landed for me.
And of the Marvel Knights series so far, Jessica Jones has been by far my favorite. But basically, it's about rape. The whole show is about rape.
But we've done that now.
Really? We can.
Yeah, we're three white men.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about rape now. I don't think that has to define the character forever.
No,
I think that's been worked through well.
I don't know how
season.
they're going to follow up with the second season.
I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it because I think that whole issue, which was never blatantly even really addressed as such in the series anyway, but I think that was really swept off the table by the end of that first season, and the character needs to go somewhere else now. I think Defenders is a good place to start.
Yeah, but I liked what I saw from the Defenders trailer. However, they've had 2.5 dogs on Netflix now of the Marvel series.
Whoa, 2.5?
2.5 dogs.
I haven't seen Iron Fist.
Don't bother.
Okay, what was the other?
Luke Cage is a dog.
It is not.
It totally is.
No.
It went 2 episodes too long.
Well, I think anything more than 10 episodes goes too long.
Okay.
The
But
HBO model is
up
the way
until
to go.
they killed Cottonmouth. It was a solid series.
It was good. It
was
with it.
atmospheric. It was stylistic, but it was very good.
I tell you, everything after the first 10 episodes of MASH was shit.
Okay, so
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that formula fits every scenario.
But that was only a half hour.
Yeah.
I mean, try to make an hour drama with more than 10 episodes.
So you're counting Luke Cage and Iron Fist as complete dogs. What was the half?
Daredevil season 1.
I got to disagree again.
Yeah.
The middle
one
of that season 1. Holy cow, that was tough to get through.
The only clunker in season 1 was the final episode with the fight with Fisk.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, but up to that point, it was. I thought season 1 was better than season 2.
See, I really enjoyed season 2.
I thought the hand was kind of thrown in there. The season 2 was compelling because of Punisher. The hand was kind of a C story, and Elektra was completely misused.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that one. I really would have liked to have seen her be an assassin,
right?
Instead of a rich girl who knew how to fight. Like, I wanted to see Elektra assassin, not what we got. But yeah, so
what are you going to see in Defenders with the tease we got there?
Yeah, the bottom line is Marvel has some making up to do for its Netflix series because each one is flawed in some way. Jessica Jones is probably the best one, even though the fight scenes and they didn't really tell you what her powers were or anything.
I'm okay with that. I don't need to.
No, that pisses me off. I hate that.
See, I don't need.
You have 13 goddamn episodes. Tell us what her fucking power set is.
She's super strong.
And in real life, put yourself in a position of somebody who suddenly has superpowers. How do you know what your powers are?
But in Jessica Jones, it's not suddenly. She's had them since childhood.
Yes, she has.
Yeah, but do you think she's gone to the gym to see how much she can lift?
Of course. If you had those powers, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you like go to an empty lot and you're like, okay, how many cars can I pick up at once?
Yeah, probably. I do that now. So far, it's 0.
I'm just saying, that's the sort of the ranking charts and the power levels by how many dots and all that. The stuff you get if you play a Marvel superheroes RPG
or just read
look at the website.
Marvel handbook.
That kind of stuff doesn't fit well into a more grounded series.
One sentence in 13 episodes. They couldn't come up with one goddamn sentence in 13 episodes.
They don't need to.
Luke Cage didn't know how bulletproof he was.
What do you mean how bulletproof he was?
He was bulletproof, but obviously not bulletproof against everything.
Oh, yeah, the one secret bullet thing?
Yes.
Ugh, that side story. Oh,
my
God, it was so bad.
I'm not saying that was a great development in the show. I'm not making that claim at all, but I'm saying that's the kind of thing that happens in real life. You think you're bulletproof, and then you find out there are bullets that you're not proof against.
Okay.
The superpowers can't be described as a single adjective if you want them to exist in a grounded universe.
I don't want grounded.
We
just talked about
going with
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, you can have both.
Yeah. Well, all I'm saying is Marvel has some reckoning to do with
what
Defenders.
are Drax's superpowers?
Still don't know, do we? We still don't know his power level. That's a minor spoiler, I guess.
That's not a spoiler.
It was something I hope they addressed, like going into this movie.
Does he put a shirt on at any point?
No, because we can't. No, we won't tell.
All right.
No, there is a reason he doesn't put on a shirt, and it's hilarious.
Okay, sing us off.
Oh, okay,
that's other than that, all I've been doing is I've been playing Yakuza 0, a Japanese game with role-playing elements.
Yeah.
Okay.
But a game with a great fighting system where you can pick up a motorcycle and hit 3 guys with it and knock them 20 feet down the road. Who doesn't love that?
That does sound like fun.
And subtitles.
Oh boy, you lost me.
They haven't done a English dub of any of those games since the PS2 era.
Oh God,
maybe PS1. I honestly don't remember.
Oh, I finished The Get Down on Netflix. That is a fun little series.
Yeah.
And it's short. 2 very short seasons. So you're talking maybe 6, fewer than 12 episodes in total, I think. Just a delightful little series. And I'd like to start the second season of Sense8 this week.
Oh, okay.
I really like season 1 of Sense8.
I thought you talked more about the Get Down.
I can if you wish.
Well, I just felt like it'd be a good opportunity
Oh, here we go.
to establish your TV black friends.
I also watched The Wire. Love The Wire. So they're not my only TV black friends.
There was that black guy on Barney Miller you liked.
And Preacher from Firefly.
Same guy.
Same guy.
Wrong glass.
Wrong, yeah, that's
who sadly passed away.
yeah,
Underappreciated.
Totally.
Bob, anything you want to throw in?
I got nothing this week. Going to trivia tomorrow night. May go to a Tom Reed rally Tuesday night.
For or against?
Against Planned Parenthood cuts.
Okay.
But
when you say Tom Reed rally, people may not know.
sure.
Okay, so is that the show?
Yeah, why
And
don't you give him...
that may be the show.
All right. James, you going to sing us out?
I don't have it in me.
He's not feeling
I had
it
a
today.
long week.
Not feeling it. That's why I called you the media darling.
Yeah.
We'll get into that at some other point. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. If tuning in, who uses that?
You.
Ugh,
Just you.
God, why did I say tuning in? That's like, oh, I'm going to tape this
Now we
show
have to
on
start
TV.
over.
So if you want us to discuss a topic that you don't think we discuss enough, hit us up on email. stayontopic111@gmail. Hit me up on Twitter @Giltastrophe or James.
At PostJM9.
And someday,
And please message me because I'm lonely.
someday Ricardo will get his shit together and actually tend to his other two Twitter profiles.
And do some manscaping on your Twitter profile. It needs some work.
I will spend some time on it this week.
Excellent.